Good Tuesday afternoon, and thanks for joining us on KARE 11 News Now. I'm Chris Harabsky. The man who shot Minnesota lawmakers and led authorities on the biggest manhunt in state history last year is heading to prison for the rest of his life. Vance Belter was officially sentenced in federal court this morning to 2 life terms plus 40 years for the shootings that killed Speaker Emerita Melissa Hortman, her husband Mark, and the shootings of State Senator John Hoffman and his wife Yvette in the attempted shooting of the Hoffman's daughter, Hope. KARE 11's Audrey Russo, Gordon Severson, and Danny Spiewak have team coverage from the federal courthouse in Minneapolis.
It was 2 grueling hours of victim impact statements before Vance Belter learned his sentence. Now, I'm joined by Gordon Severson and Danny Spiewak. Both were in the courtroom as that sentence was handed down. First, Gordon, I want to ask you, tell me a little bit about the family's reaction. And essentially, this is a day that they've been preparing for, and yet it was still very fresh and emotional.
Yeah, and I mean, it was just emotional for us to hear, and the strength that it took for so many of these individuals to go up there in front of nearly 200 people and to share like their story of what happened. I think of the Hoffmans, all 3 of them individually spoke. And I think we have a quote that we got from Senator John Hoffman praising his daughter for her quick actions that night, saying, quote, "My daughter fought to save us. She decided hope and courage. She displayed more courage in one night than this defendant showed in 40 years of preaching. Minnesota lost 2 devoted public servants." And when she went up there, it just crazy to be able to see that she had the strength to go and talk in front of all those people.
Yeah, and you know, in addition to the family members who spoke today, there is also the whole political implication of this trial and of this sentencing, I should say, and what happened. Danny, tell me a little bit about the politicians who spoke and gave victim impact statements as well.
Audrey, this was obviously a shocking act of political violence, among the worst, certainly the worst in the state of Minnesota's history. And one of the things that really stood out was some of the comments from Representative Kristen Bonner, of course, who Belter visited her home. She happened to not be there on the morning of June 14, 2025. And then from the House DFL leader, Representative Zach Stevenson, who was really an understudy to Melissa Hortman for so many years, very close friend of hers. And they both looked Belter in the eye and looked at him and said, "You attempted to cause terror in our life. You attempted to try to dissuade us from doing our jobs as political leaders, but you failed," what both of them said, looking at him and telling him in his eyes, saying that you have failed to deter us from being public servants and that we're more committed than ever to do the job. And I thought that those 2 really eloquently put that out there in court this morning.
And Gordon, you said that Vance Belter's final statement was 18 words long, and there wasn't really a lot of time to react, but give us the gist of exactly what he said.
Basically, you know, just said that he was sorry for all the pain he caused. I believe it was 18 words, and immediately afterwards kind of turned to go sit back down. And then the judge kind of was like, "Well, I'm going to keep you up here to kind of talk a little bit more about the sentence," because it was wrapping up at that time. And so, he read it quickly, decided like he was going to sit down. I know, some of the family members question, his sincerity with something like that. But I feel like no matter what he would have said, they wouldn't have found any closure in it. One thing that really stood out to me, and you mentioned with Representative Bonner, when she mentioned that, she said, "I would have opened that door if a police officer came," and knowing that if she would have been home, she probably would have been another victim. That was a powerful thing to hear, and to her talk about how she probably would have had her grandkids there and feeling the guilt of being a public official and potentially putting them in that danger, something she never really considered, was something that was really powerful that stood out to me.
Yeah, and we all know that this isn't really the end of this case. We know it's the end of the federal proceedings, but the state is bringing its own separate case against Vance Belter, and those proceedings are set to start in a little over a week and a half's time.
All right, thank you very much. We are following a developing story out of Edina right now. Police are investigating a possible shooting near Yancey Park. This happened about 9 o'clock last night. Officers say they were responding to a call of shots fired in that area. Right now, we don't have any reports of injuries and no suspects in custody. We're still trying to find more information. Police are actually asking anyone with any more information to contact them. In Brooklyn Park, we're waiting for charges to be filed against a man accused of breaking into 2 homes and sexually assaulting 2 women at gunpoint. Police saying it happened just days after he was released from prison. Our crews were at the scene yesterday when armored cars and SWAT teams pulled up to this home right here, arresting a 25-year-old man inside. We're not naming him because he hasn't been charged yet. The brother of one of the victims saying hearing what happened was horrifying. Ian Russell has more.
In the middle of rush hour, armored cars and police join the evening commute. Brooklyn Park SWAT moving in, arresting a 25-year-old man in connection to several sexual assaults that happened over the past week.
Nobody should have to endure what they did. Nobody.
Police say that man, who are not identifying because he hasn't yet been charged, was released from prison on July 7th and on parole from a firearm possession charge.
Just 10 days out of prison, was able to get a gun, possess that gun, and sexually assault and home invasion style our citizens of Brooklyn Park. That is simply unacceptable.
Those two sexual assaults happening just feet from where that man was arrested.
To say that it's alarming, that's exactly accurate. It is alarming.
As police say, he held his victims at gunpoint before assaulting them.
This is really traumatic and should be for any community. This should not happen anywhere, and I'm sorry that it does.
One assault happening in the same apartment complex, the other just blocks away.
So what's going on? Is he okay?
Prince Don says Wednesday morning's assault was personal, as his sister, Betty, was the one attacked.
They said that when she yells or shouts or something like that, they're going to shoot the kids and other stuff. I'm like, what do you mean? It's something scary, you know, if you have a sister and other kids around, you know.
That man taken into custody without incident.
Knowing that it is such concern to the community.
Now in jail, awaiting charges.
But what we did do is we're going to hold the person accountable.
Ian Russell reporting there. An investigation is underway in Madison, Wisconsin this afternoon as protesters call for answers after a police officer fatally shot a man who investigators say pulled a knife during a scuffle with deputies. Police say it took place after the man fled from officers who were responding to a report of an individual allegedly stealing bicycles and checking car doors. Tim Elliott of affiliate WMTV has the details from Madison.
I'm Tim Elliott reporting from the Near East Side of Madison at the intersection of Williamson Street and Baldwin Street. And this is the intersection right here where Madison police shot and killed a man on Wednesday afternoon. You can take a look here at this memorial that's been growing ever since that incident. You can see lots of flowers here, candles. People have written messages there on the asphalt using chalk and using spray paint. Now, authorities say they were called to this scene here around 1 o'clock in the afternoon on Wednesday for a man who's going through parked cars. They encountered that man. Madison police say that man then pulled a knife on them and attacked a police officer, and that's when that same police officer then opened fire and shot and killed that man right here in this spot on the Near East Side of Madison. Now, there's been video of this incident circulating on social media. The police chief of Madison doesn't want people to rush to judgment after seeing that video. He wants all the facts to come out in this case, but a lot of people here at this memorial site very upset, very angry, very frustrated as to what happened, and they want answers, they say, from Madison police. Reporting from the Near East Side of Madison, I'm Tim Elliott.
A new report is showing crime is trending down across much of the country, including here in the Twin Cities. The Council on Criminal Justice analyzed trends in 36 major U.S. cities and found homicides are on pace to reach another historic low. In Minneapolis, homicides dropped 30% in the first 6 months of this year compared to that same period last year. But the city is still one of just 4 in the study where homicides are still above pre-pandemic levels.
It's trending in the right direction, but still, being vigilant, trying for the city officials to figure out what's working, taking an honest look at the evidence and their data to figure out what they can do to continue that trend going downward.
The report also revealing car thefts in Minneapolis increased 24% from last year and remains 126% higher than it was in the first half of 2019, the second largest increase among the cities studied. You can view that full report for yourself. Look at all the data. It is on our website, KARE11.com. Now for the latest on the fires in northern Minnesota. 13 wildfires burning up north, scorching more than 77,000 acres. Today, some people evacuated from Ely got the chance to go back home for the first time in a while. Earlier today, authorities started escorting people back to the properties to grab essential items or check on their valuables. This all comes as officials start working on ways to reopen parts of the boundary waters. Overseas now, there are new concerns about the future of oil and gas prices after Yemen-based Houthi rebels, backed by Iran, attacked 2 Saudi Arabian oil tankers in the Red Sea. NBC's Richard Engel is in Jerusalem with more on this Middle East conflict.
For the last 5 months, we've been talking about the Strait of Hormuz and how the U.S.-Iran war has been disrupting maritime traffic through the Strait of Hormuz, which is critical for the flow of oil and gas. And right now, the strait is effectively closed as this war between the U.S. and Iran is escalating at the moment. But overnight, a new front opened up. According to a Yemeni militia group, they carried out 2 attacks on Saudi vessels. The attacks were condemned by Secretary of State Marco Rubio in the Red Sea. The Red Sea is to the west of the Strait of Hormuz, and it is responsible for the transport of a full 12% of all global trade. So this second front, which opened overnight, the Houthis said that they carried out this attack. The Houthis are backed by Iran in the spirit of an eye for an eye, has the possibility to disrupt not just the flow of oil and gas, but all global trade.
All right, Richard Engel reporting there from Jerusalem. Thank you. Hey, stick with us. We got more news and weather. It's coming up after the break.